had a student who was just really elevated. There wasn't a lot to bring him down, and he just kind of had this reaction where he just said, yeah, well, something to the effect of, you know, you might not even see me tomorrow. And it made, my first trigger was, he's either going to do something violent to other people or he's referring to suicide. Very scary. I had never seen a classroom of such strong personalities go silent. So they're silent, they're freaked out. I did get the student, I said, okay, I think it's time. You need to go outside. You need to take a break. So they went to the administrators took them. And then I had to talk to the class. I'm like, okay, that was scary. That was unsafe feeling. That was scary for him. We all have this connection and care about this kid because we're all kind of bonded in that kind of group of we're all kind of suffering kind of way. And then the next day, the administrators just wanted to send him back to class. And I said, I can't. The kids are not comfortable. Talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They can't learn when they're feeling like they can't even be themselves or relax a little bit with somebody in the room. So I had to talk to the kid, and I just said, they're freaked out. That was really scary, something that you said, and we need to figure out what's going on. And so, long story short, he did come in, he apologized. We also got him some help, and he's an adult now, he has a full job, he communicates with me and lets me know, like, hey, here's my status update, I'm doing fine. But that class needed that reset. They needed that new, like, okay, permission to feel okay again, and apologize and feel and forgive this person. And so this kind of life experience was happening within the classroom, probably because the student didn't have the skill set that a lot of other kids develop of how to communicate, because a lot of kids in lower socioeconomic status households are around others of their same age. So although they can make friends well or they can learn how to entertain themselves, they don't develop a lot of skills on how to talk to adults or they're not getting adults that know how to communicate, know how to express their feelings, having conversations with them to kind of give them that subtle training on how to behave. So they're a little less equipped.
So just adding to that story in that class, I know that obviously you being a teacher, you deal with an age group that's obviously younger than you on the daily, but when it comes to your peers, your other teachers, and for that specific situation, when your principal came to you and said, we need you to teach this class because you're the only one that's gonna understand their background, understand their behavior, did it kind of feel like a responsibility that should be, how do I phrase it, a responsibility that should be understood by all teachers and all people you work with? Do you think that the reason they asked you was because you were at Steilacoom, and that if you were to still be at Spanaway Lake or Keithley, that they maybe would have asked another teacher because it wasn't such a rarity to come across behavior like that?
Yes, I think a lot of the teachers within Steilacoom School District, and this isn't to blame them, but I think a lot of them, that's the only school they've been at, and they themselves are more in the category of privileged and higher socioeconomic status. So their experience is not around kids that have high ACEs who have a lower socioeconomic background. So here I was, this kind of anomaly working there of, oh, here's a teacher who understands kids from this background, and therefore let's see if we can utilize her to help us with this. I'm sure there are other teachers, and this is, in my particular field, what I was teaching, but I think there's probably other teachers that definitely know how, and I think there's training that can absolutely be given to any teacher that can help them. But that goes back to, well, education itself. If you were to call education a person, what would education be? Would they be lower class, middle class, or higher class, right? they probably be in that scrape and buy, kind of pretended to be middle class, but really they can't afford much, lower class. Education itself doesn't have a lot of support. And so if you're not willing to spend money within the education system to help it rise to a higher standard, train teachers to be able to handle all these different things, to recognize them, to understand what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is, what ACEs look like, what kids of multiple backgrounds look like, you're not really preparing them. And so what prepares them? Experience. So a teacher at Spanaway Lake High School could probably have totally handled that classroom just as well because they're experienced more in it.
Yeah. So that leads me to my final question, and that's, what improvements do you think would help Pierce County school districts, not just the ones you've worked at, but just all over?
I think, I hate to say it, but more money.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be specific training consistently at all schools, because all schools, except for some very few, I think, are going to deal with kids that are going to have a lower socioeconomic status. Yes, there are some elite schools in certain parts of our country, and those are kind of in a different bracket. And there's definitely some schools that have no higher socioeconomic status kids. But again, if we have training for all kids, you're able to affect any kid no matter what. And that's training on, what does the human person need? What does this collective of kids within this community need? Physically, emotionally, and then academically, because it's just not enough anymore to come to school and talk about a topic and have kids repeat it and get graded. School is just not that system anymore. And so we have to grow and change and recognize that school is a social system which can be excellent. There's no greater place to learn about so many different personalities and norms and how to how to be a person than in a school. Yeah. Every person's been to school at some point. So as educators, we have to be willing to accept that and embrace that and like that part of it. So we need more resources, and I think teachers should probably be paid more. There are some states, I'm lucky, Washington State's one of the highest paying states for teachers. But if you don't make teaching an appealing job, not just a vocation that people feel called to it, but an actual job where they can support their family with it, you're gonna get less and less people that are willing to do the job, and then you're gonna get less and less support. And what are you gonna do? So we have to support the people that are trying to support the people of America who are going to school.
Yeah.
So we need more money, we need more training, more understanding of what school really is, so that we can, especially in this day and age, what are kids really interested in, and just try to level the playing field a little bit to help the difference between
this gap
that we have, and not just trying to close the gap, recognize it exists, but what a great neutral field called school is there to be able to say, well, here, all you guys get the same supplies and care and support. And that can help give everybody what they need, regardless of money.
All right, well, thank you so much for answering my questions and discussing with me today and joining us. Is there any final thoughts you want to have, encouragement, any other stories?
I think every kid's able to do anything. I know for a fact, looking at data that I've collected, experiences that I have, that if you are poor, it does not mean that you are not intelligent and can't be incredibly successful and at school and anything else you put your mind to. And being rich does not mean you are not exposed to trauma or difficulties. So I've seen that. So knowing that there could be a way to provide supports that help all kids, so that rich kid gets that emotional support they need, and that poor kid gets the supplies and the financial need they need, can help everyone. And I think we have to recognize and not accidentally stereotype poor means bad, means dumb, because it's just not true. Nor can we say rich means smart, means kind. Not true either. So we have to recognize what we're really looking at so that we can actually help people correctly. But other than that, we're good.
Okay, what a wonderful message to end on. Thank you so much.
Thanks.